Hello, my name's Mru Patel. I'm the CEO and partner of Sapian Group and COO and partner of Flash Group. A lot of people have been asking me about what is happening, what will happen with XRP Ripple. I've been a big hodler and have been following it and researched a lot out of it and met some of the people from Ripple and talked at great lengths about this. So without further ado, we've just had last week the first hearing, or 2 weeks ago rather, the first hearing, and it has been absolutely controversial to what people thought. So people thought they would get, whilst I share my screen, they would get some sort of resolution. But a resolution was never going to come from the first hearing. These are court cases, and people should just wait and see what happens. But here is my take from that first hearing. Plus, I did a video second week of January when the court case was announced that it's definitely going to happen first week of February. So here's my view. I think SEC are worried, bottom line. They are worried because of the stance and the power of Ripple. However, let's pull it back. The sole purpose of SEC is to protect the clients. That is their sole purpose in life. However, because of a lot of pressure, and this is my view purely, that the banks, the central banks, the governments, and all of that cartel, dare I call it, that will be affected not only by Ripple, but also the cryptocurrency at large, because it's already disrupting the world, cross-border payments, remittances, small payments around the world, including various implementations of central government currencies called CBDC, central banking digital currency, that is really taking the world by a storm. That blockchain is here to stay. Cryptocurrency and digital assets are here to stay, so much so that the governments like China, Germany, UK, many places in Asia, many places around the world are already looking at it. And at the core hub of it, a lot of them, including one of the biggest banks in Japan, SBI, has rubber stamped and said, we are going with Ripple. UK is doing the same. So the SEC and US is worried. Okay. So in my view, what is happening is that in that worry, they want to put a stake in the ground to say, what is a security, what's a currency, what's a utility coin, etc. And it's quite ironic that Bitcoin, Ethereum, and a number of other coins haven't been pulled up because SEC cannot have a say on some of these, but Ripple being an American company, they can, and Ripple also being an American-based coin that was right there in the forefront at the number 3 position until it lost its slot, there to disrupt it. And their strategy has been all about embracing banks and using it as an alternative to credit cards and Swift, a little bit like what Libra or DM was trying to do. So in my view, what the banks now are worried about is trading that's going to happen, or exchange of currency going past the Swift system. So a lot of the banks where Ripple have signed up, they already do these sorts of OTC types of deals for the banks. So Ripple give them X amount of coins and say, okay, whenever there's a fluctuation, when you do a cross-border transaction, we will cover the fluctuation, should there be a fluctuation in that microsecond, because Ripple guarantee the transaction to happen in less than 5 seconds, okay? And it's usually faster than that. So that's one thing that SEC is worried about. The next thing that SEC is worried about is what I call, and this part I absolutely buy what SEC is trying to see. So Ripple had held 50 billion of their coins, and they drip feed it by a billion a month over the next 5 years. And I don't like that, or 2 years or 3 years already gone. I don't like that, but they still hold a lot. And they also use this to dump to banks when they sign banks up to cover the fluctuations. In so doing, what happens to clients is those investors of XRP, they don't see the growths like the other digital currencies do. So they kind of like suppress the market, play the market. So it's not a huge acceleration like that, yet market reacts the way they do. So they did take a dump from the all-time high of around $3 to currently playing around the 45 cents mark, right? So even though there is an SEC hearing, that price hasn't gone to zero. Main reason is I feel, and a number of lawyers out there feel, that SEC hasn't got a ground to stand on, because what's happened in the past is their rules and regulations hasn't been particularly clear. So even in Ripple's usual communication with them, there hasn't been clarity in what is a utility, what's a security token, how it's deployed, right to the point when even MoneyGram, who signed the deal with Ripple, and when they bought shares in the company and when they used it as their cross border payment system, they were not challenged by the SEC, and it was kind of like blessed. So Ripple has got a big plus on their side. That, coupled with, if you go down to basics, is Ripple, they have like 21 lawyers who are so specialists in just these sorts of securities and security tokens and digital assets arena. SEC's got three, okay? But don't forget about the 21 best lawyers that Ripple could get, and SEC's three. Ripple also have a number of investors who are lawyers who all contribute to this case. So whilst a lawyer is an investor, they also contribute and say, have a look at it from this angle, case XYZ, this is where it's weak. Why did this get signed? We came to you for this meeting. You didn't challenge it. Now you're challenging it. So they've got a lot of weight behind them from a legal standpoint. Okay. The next thing I would say is, following this free advice they get, the big picture should not be missed. And that's what I want to cover. Why I think Ripple has got everything going for it still to be the world's #1 coin. Okay. So what I think is that Ripple is there to really look at that alternative strategy. As I said, it's embracing banks, it's embracing cross-border payments, right down to even the small payments, because the cost of transaction is absolutely minuscule compared to the gas fees that people pay on Ethereum, Bitcoin transfers, and the cost of energy and all of this. Ripple does not have that high a footprint on energy or in transaction fees or gas fees. So it's got a big thing going for them on that front, as well as the banks, like hundreds of banks around the world. Next thing is the CBDCs, the central banking digital currency initiatives that are happening around the world, including Japan, UK, various others, in Europe. A lot of them are also looking at the Ripple's type of infrastructure and looking to use that for their CBDC infrastructure. That tells me that even the governments and big central banks are behind Ripple and supporting them to say this is a currency and it is not a security, apart from that one case in point that I will cover about the shareholders and this dumping of the 1 billion that they do every month. Okay. So it's kind of like already accepted as a de facto standard and a currency for some of the CBDCs around the world, together with cross-border payment systems like the MoneyGrams, who are now beginning to pull out because of this SEC court case, but a number of others, the Amexes, the Santanders, the Western Unions, they're all still in it. Okay. So what SEC and that cartel I mentioned earlier, they're really worried about is the US economy, because US, let's be honest, are never the first off the blocks when it comes to deploying these sorts of things. Most of the momentum and deployment and use case scenarios have been outside US, and what Asia and China and some of these places are really doing with blockchain and cryptocurrencies is way ahead to what US is actually doing. So they are feeling that they are behind and catch-up mode. So they're concerned. If they play their cards right, and we all know this paper printing and quantitative easing that's going on with yet another 2 trillion being printed, there comes a point where currency as we know it in fiat will not have much value. It'll be deflated. It will be worth what's written on the paper, but how do you say what's the true value? And unfortunately, deflation and the US dollar will lose momentum in terms of its exchange rates across other currencies, together with what I feel is the world's transactions. And I've said this many times over the last 4 years or so, that what China is doing, what Asia, India is doing, what UK is doing, Germany is doing, France, a lot of these countries will come to a point and say, you know what, why are we pegging our transactions worldwide against the dollar? So some of them will be direct currency to currency without the middleman exchanges, without the middleman central banks, without the middleman SWIFT types of transactions that we happen end to end. So people to people, peer to peer transaction is where the world is going. And this is what US is worried about, where they have close to 70% market share in all global transactions daily, which is close to 7 trillion a day. They have 70% of all that going through the US dollar. They will lose that market share, and they are worried about that. XRP is one of the vehicles and infrastructures that are being used across all CBDCs. So that's a big game changer. And in terms of economy, if you then look at how many jobs will be lost, from people who print money, Delarues of the countries and the worlds, through to the securities, the G-Force, all the people who transport money, through to filling it up in ATMs, through to the banks, the tellers, all of this, transportation, distribution, all of that needs to go, and people managing it, regulating it, all of that employment, for one of better words, bricks and mortar types of businesses, distribution businesses, printing businesses will be impacted in a big way with digital assets. It's the same what happened when people were bartering centuries ago with chicken and gold and metal to buy things, and then the US dollar and currencies became popular after gold, because gold was seen as that, until the US put a blocker on it and banned it, and then opened it up when they collected all the reserves in the 70s post the Roosevelt Act. Now, the same thing could happen should Bitcoin get to 1 million or even 500,000 valuation. It's already bigger than most big banks in the world. If it gets to that, the Bitcoin price alone and market cap alone will be much bigger than all the banks put together. So they are worried about that. Okay. And that could then become a media and a store of value. The same way, if XRP becomes the de facto coin, the de facto cross-border coin, then again, it could be bigger than MasterCard, Visa, every bank in the world. And it's similar to what Facebook DM was trying to do, because it has the 2 billion user base. This becomes then the fuel or the money for all transfers. So if you look at it between Bitcoin, XRP, should they pull this off, it could be bigger than all the companies that we know on this planet, including the Amazons and the Teslas of the world. So that is the big concern. Hence, pressure from lots of angles. To summarize my view, I think it will settle. I think they should be fair to the existing users who've been there for the last so many years. They should distribute like what they did with the Flare network and Spark, which will really be another game changer for making this ecosystem work. How they gave people Flare for XRP holders, they should do the same for XRP holders of old, and say, you know what, we hodled this too long. We kept it all for ourselves. Have some, share some. XEC to then slap them on the wrist with a big fine, which I'm sure they will pay it off very easily from the valuation of the coin. If that happens, because the case is not very strong in favor of SEC currently, then Ripple will rebound. And in my view, it could rebound before the end of this year to silly levels. Not doing any predictions here, but it could very, very easily go past the $3 mark once we get some clarity on which way the case is going to go. With that, hang tough. I still say it's a good ecosystem and a value proposition. If they are fined for some of the things, give back to the community, put some regulations that they can't be hodling and doing all of this all for themselves and getting rich themselves. They need to share that wealth around, and they need to be legislated how they give it to the banks. If that is sorted out, in my view, this could be a real game changer coin. Thanks a lot, and look forward to seeing you on my next videos. Hit that subscribe so you don't miss out on any of them. See you soon.